We interrupt this program to bring you.
Gonna start. Doug Wagner, do you have a specific brand of fizzy water that you enjoy?
No, dude, I'm low rent. So if it's got fizz in it, I'll drink it. Like, I even have like a soda stream at the house. I'll do soda stream, dude. Like, just crank it up.
Yeah.
Just
Soda
get
stream. We had a soda
nice.
stream way back in the day, and the problem with soda stream wasn't the actual contraption, but it was the bulkiness of, because we had I guess the first generation ones that were 10 foot tall and 5 foot wide, and you couldn't put them anywhere. So then we just had to get rid of it. But I love the soda stream thing, man. All the little flavors. Do you do the flavors or no?
Nope, just water.
That's the water.
Yep.
Nice. That's cool. That's clean living, Doug. I dig that.
I gotta have the flavors, Doug. So I'm on the opposite. I'm fancy, man.
I don't have one of those things because I'd have to have the flavors too, and
Yeah,
I just destroy some flavors. So I can't even, I can't do that to myself. I'll have diabetes so fast.
Is the one you have now? Is that flavored?
Yeah, it's cherry lime.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Cherry lime.
Now, is it like the LaCroix or whatever? What is it? The LaCroix?
No, I'm low rent. I'm like a cross between Doug and Hoyt. I'm low rent. It's the Walmart brand, like the 50 cent, 50 cent fizzy water, because you can get like a whole shopping cart full for like $2.
Okay. Because what is it? Go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
You know what upsets me about that is if it's the Walmart or Kroger brand, everything on the label should be misspelled. It should be like some kind of weird cherry line that's not spelled right.
I think it's right.
Oh yeah, it's right.
That's not real.
Because we get the bubbly in this house. The bubbly is good. We tried is it LaCroix or LaCroix or whatever it is?
LaCroix.
That shit tastes like hairspray. It tastes like hairspray. Like they just,
dude. I can't mess with that stuff either.
It's terrible. You white people were tripping there for that summer.
Yeah, dude, someone once described that to me as what was it? Is like sticking your tongue on a car battery while someone thinks of the flavor really hard in the next room. It's like so yeah, I don't mess with LaCroix either.
It's gross. The bubbly though is not bad. Like the bubbly isn't bad, but you only get 8 cans in a container. Like the what are they called, Kevin? The square ones. You worked soda for a while.
Oh, the case.
The cases, yeah, there it is. I don't know why the word case just completely flew out of my brain. I thought maybe it's bubbly water. I thought it would be something different. But anyway,
fancy name. Hey.
Enough about bubbly water and beverages. Let's talk to Doug and Hoyt about their brand new Kickstarter that's already funded.
Hey.
Now tell us, Doug, what's the title of this book and how can people get it and why should they get it and all that stuff? Just get it out.
I'll get it out of the way, all of it.
Yeah.
So Jumi Spy Fatale, Batty Royale. Basically, Hoyt and I came up with this idea of we want to do something out of control action-wise with a base of what if we flipped James Bond? So instead of James Bond being your main character, it's one of these, if you go back to the old days, one of the women that he kind of is trying to use to get to the main villain. But this female character is no, I'm still in love with you and I'm not letting you go.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so total out of control action, just kind of fun. Honestly, Hoyt and I started it off just it is, and it still is, until we get money from Kickstarter, but it's been a labor of love for us. And it's we got together and we're hey, we want to put together a book that has the stuff in it we want to see.
Okay.
Period. No other, we're not worried about editors. We're not worried about paychecks. We want to do something that we want to do. And that's, I think, pretty close to what we ended up with.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And it seems to have resonated with the audience because you guys were funded in less than a day?
Oh no, it took us a week.
No,
come on, man. Yeah. It wasn't that long.
It didn't feel like a week.
It was a week. It might have felt like a day to y'all, but it felt like a year to us.
A whole month. Yeah.
Yeah, a whole month went by in those first 5 days for sure.
Well, you guys are funding. This is 20-page graphic novel or some crazy shit like that.
136.
That's insane.
That's
dude.
awesome.
Yeah.
God, that's a lot of pages, guys.
And Kevin, there's a hardback. There's a hardback available, right, Doug? There's a hardback.
Right. You got a hardcover, you got a soft cover, you even have a metal covered trade.
Bobby,
Metal
Bobby,
covers,
wait a
baby.
minute,
We're
hang
getting
on,
fancy, dude. We're getting fancy, dude.
hang on.
you're late to the party. I already backed the hardcover.
Yeah.
I backed the soft cover because I don't care about but the metal cover. What year is
Metal
this? What are we
cover.
doing here?
What's up, dude? Welcome to 95. What's up?
I'm not talking about like sprinkling gold dust on it.
Oh no, yeah, it
It's actually
isn't
a
that,
cover made out of metal.
It's made of steel. Yeah. And it's not
No
like
way.
for real, clickety clank, man. Like that
How
thing
are you-
is like seriously a metal cover.
Now this is the legit. How are you going to ship something like that? Like, is it still? Because don't they ask a bunch of questions before? Like, is there perishable liquid? Blah blah blah. Rah
It's
rah
still a
rah.
book. It's
Yeah, but
still
it's got a
book,
metal
regardless.
cover,
Yeah,
like,
what's-
isn't that-
Yeah, but whatever. I mean, whatever. It's still
They
a book.
don't have
I think,
to bring
like,
it with them to
like-
cons.
Hoyt
It's just
Silva,
getting
did you,
shipped.
Hoyt Silva, did you run this by your local post office to see if it's cool if you ship metal covered books to people?
No.
I just asked them
Find
if we
that
could
out.
ship books, and they
Yeah,
said
books,
yes.
right. Yeah, I said yes. Yeah, I don't know what. To me, it's a book. Like, if you were
Yeah,
going to ship
it's
the
still medium.
Necronomicon, you could ship that. I mean,
That's
it's a book.
Now is that a nod to the Metal Gear Solid video that you guys did? 'Cause is it going to be
So
like
slightly?
is there going to be like guys with exclamation points on the cover, like on the metal cover? I might have to change my pledge. That's why I'm asking.
Right.
In that
Yeah,
case,
so, like,
yes.
Right.
Okay.
In that case, yes, please. Yeah, no, actually, what they are is they're metal versions of like the other covers. So there's
Okay.
one for Lois's cover and one for Eliza's cover. So and we still have some of those available. So they're awesome. Like honestly,
yeah.
like I want one of those like just to have at the house to like clank on the coffee table. So
Yeah.
so when this whole pandemic thing's over and people come over, they'll be like, yo, what is that? Like it's just this metal thing in the middle of the coffee table. I figured that would be a nice conversation piece. So
why did I back a robot here? What is happening? Why am I getting sheet metal in the mail from Hoyt Silva
right,
and Doug
that's right.
Wagner? What is happening? Oh, it's the book they sent me. That's right. Okay, cool. That's cool. All right. So you guys,
half the stuff we're selling you can use as a weapon.
it's true.
yeah, there you go.
It's true.
That's
So-
the thing,
Yeah.
So
The riddle of
secret agent
steel.
book, so it's
the
a
riddle
secret-
of steel.
it's like you throw the book instead of throwing a hat or a shoe. You can throw the book.
Now, Doug, are you a big James Bond fan to kind of go into this world to tell the story of a spy's jilted lover?
Oh yeah, totally. Like, I mean, I grew up with the Sean Connery, Roger Moore movies. As a matter of fact, I got to go on the set of Moonraker
Get out of
when
here.
I was a kid. Yeah, and I got to meet the guy that played Jaws. You remember that huge,
the big dude.
Yeah.
behemoth of a man.
He had acromegaly or whatever they call that. Is that what they call it? It makes people extra big. They have a bigger than average pituitary gland.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Interesting. Didn't know.
Like Andre the Giant, same thing. He had.
I know
Yeah.
Andre the Giant, but wasn't that a guy also in Happy Gilmore?
Yes,
Yeah.
he was.
That's right. That's how I know. I don't want to say like that's how I know him, but that's how I know. But that's awesome. So you've always been who of the James Bond kind of femme fatales is your favorite?
Dude, that's
That's a tough choice. Yeah.
that's,
So I'll have
that's
to
a
say,
massively tough choice. Go ahead, Hoyt.
for me, I think like I grew up on because I'm a little bit younger than Doug, so I grew up on the Pierce Brosnan James Bond.
Yeah.
So for me, if I'm gonna say a femme fatale that I really enjoyed was probably Xenia Onatop, which was the Golden Eye, and that was Femke Jensen as.
That's
as
right, it
Xenia
was.
Onatop. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. She's great.
But-
Now is that now Hoyt? Is that more? Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. Let me get this out, and then I'll let you ask. Was this more of because of the video game GoldenEye? Because you are of that age.
Yeah. Well, I've watched the movie. I think that struck me. I was a kid that time too, obviously. So that hit me. I think like anyone of any kid, any boy, young that watches James Bond will have like an intense impression. I think regardless of whatever one of the James Bond movies you watch, because that's like they're all over the top and they're made for like young boys to like just be like, this is so cool. I want to be this dude, And I think like that was like at the heart of what we also were trying to flip, because like the idea for the whole thing came from a conversation that I had with our editor, Lisako, where we were talking about, I was reading the James Bond novels at the time, and she was sort of saying that there wasn't anything really like that for her. Like, she liked James Bond growing up, but the movies were cool, but they were never like, she was never into them kind of thing.
Okay.
So we started to like kick back the tropes of like, you know, like we were just talking about, like, for example, Xenia Onatop being like a terrible sexist name that they put on a character. And then so we're like, well, wouldn't it be funny if, like, you know, there was the flip of that for like male characters, you know, and then hence like Richard Head, which is like the name of our secret agent and stuff like that. And we sort of like just started riffing on that. And then like the next day, serendipitously, I mean, I had met Doug maybe like a week before, but like the next day, Doug called me to like catch up like a week after we had met on the convention just to talk about stuff, and asked me if I had any ideas about like a badass female lead. And I told him about the conversation that I and Lisako had, and then he just like took it from there. So it was like this like whole like crazy weird organic thing that happened, you know, while we like just were kicking around the idea, like you're saying, like the whole James Bond thing, you know, like, and being such a huge fan of it, like I was just so in love with that. And then when I talked to Doug about it, he was so in love with the idea of like just James Bond in general as well. It was like such like a good match. I don't know. It was like weird. It was weird because usually, and you guys probably know this experience, like you have an idea about something and you kick it to somebody, and then when they come back with whatever idea they have about it, it might be completely different than what you had, you know? And although what Doug came back with after we kicked the idea to each other was different than what I had originally pictured, it was still like exactly in line with like the character we had talked about. And like he had come up with this fucking awesome story. I'm going on and on here, fellas.
It's
So
okay.
but he had come up with this awesome story that I just loved so
this.
much. Yeah. So it's just like that. I think like right off the beginning, that love, to bring it all around full circle, that love for James Bond has been like in the work from the beginning. You know, I think like we're both like huge fans, and not only like we might be poking fun at some aspects of it, but we're only poking fun at aspects of it because like we loved it so much that
Makes
we thought
sense.
other people could use that, you know? So yeah.
The only thing I was going to say was the Bond girl question. I was going to say Michelle Yeoh, because like she was like his equal in like Tomorrow Never Dies. Or I might have the wrong one.
Chinese counter. Yeah, she was the Chinese counter agent, right? Yeah,
and she was dope.
That's the news. That's the news one where like the news media guys like trying to take over whatever, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and they have that badass chase scene
on
the BMW.
And they have something
on the bike,
train.
on the motorcycle is the one.
That's right. That's right.
When they're handcuffed to each other, right?
Yes.
They're handcuffed to each other, and they have like this whole chase scene on a BMW motorcycle. That I remember. Yeah. And I think they went stuntacular for that BMW chase scene because the previous one, which I think was GoldenEye, right, was the one where they go all into the car, like the Z3, and they make it look like really awesome. But then he like gets in the car and rides it to meet his buddy, and then like that's the whole. That's it. Like there's no use for the car whatsoever in the entire thing.
They probably got paid for it. They got paid for it.
Yeah, for sure. They got the endorsement. That's for sure. No doubt. Product placement, hardcore.
Oh yeah, totally. That's wonderful. So you guys are this dynamic duo of teams working together on this thing. So you guys said you've only known each other. How long have you guys been working together?
Oh, what, 4 or 5 years now?
Okay. Yeah. So this idea, has it been in the works for a long time, or was this something that just kind of hit and you just went with it immediately?
No, we've been working on it for a while.
Yeah. I completed the book like quite a bit ago before we even really decided like where we were going to go with it and what we were going to do with it. Like Doug said, it was like a labor of love over the past like 4 or 5 years or so.
Oh, wow.
We've been working on it. Yeah. And so it's just been like in between other projects, you know, I mean, you guys know how it is. If you're working on something that you have to do, I have to keep the lights on. So if I have to do an issue of something or a cover or whatever it is that I have to do, you know, I have to do that to pay the bills so that I can afford to do this, you know.
That's cool.
Yeah. But it was, I mean, it's been a while. We've been working on it for quite a while. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Kevin?
I didn't have anything to say.
Okay.
No, so you're just,
I was listening.
I thought you had something to say.
I just don't want to.
I thought somebody else was going to say something, so I was like, I'm not trying to interrupt. Yeah, it was weird.
So, Doug, what's it like working with Hoyt then, man? Do you dig working with him?
Oh yeah, dude, I absolutely loved it. I mean, one of the great things, I mean, and you guys will understand this too, because you've worked on several books, like there's certain creators you just get along with, like right out of the gate. And Hoyt and I, from the day one, like we were on the same page. And that always helps, because sometimes, you're working with somebody and they're like, oh, I think the character should look like this. And you're like, that's not what I have in my head. That's not even close to what I have in my head. But right out of the gate, like Hoyt and I kind of were on the same page. We were headed in the same direction. And I think, again, it comes all back to like, we have the same love of the same stories, like The Matrix and Fifth Element and movies like that we're like, let's do something like that in comics. That was kind of like our coming out goal. And Hoyt had always liked the one that Brian and I did, Gun Candy. And he's like, hey, can we do something like that? And I'm like, absolutely. Like, let's jump into it. And so, I mean, it was, and I work really close typically with like everybody and I probably bugged the crap out of Hoyt when it was all going on, because I call him and be like, okay, so do you like this line better or do you like this line better? What do you think sells this book better? And so, it was just, like I said, I'm rambling here, but it was an absolute enjoyment. Like, I loved it.
Well,
go ahead, Kev. No, you go.
You mentioned Gun Candy. So you guys have worked on other things before without each other. So what brought you together? Like, because Hoyt's worked on like Last Stop and the webcomic he's doing with Trey. The name's escaping me right now.
Yeah.
And then
Shameless plug.
That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to set that up for you.
No, I appreciate it.
And Doug's worked on Plastic and the other book for Shadowline that's escaped, for 12 games. It's escaping me. Yeah. So
Thomas River.
Yeah, that just came out. You just had that successful Kickstarter. So what was the culmination that brought you two guys together? Like the circle that where you guys met?
Heroes Con and Brian Stelfreeze.
Yeah, Heroes Con and Brian Stelfreeze, 100%. Yeah, right, exactly. We obviously, as you guys know, I've been a pupil of Brian Stelfreeze's for forever now. The guy's like one of my best friends, and he's taught me everything that I know. And through that, obviously, I knew of Doug, and of Doug's work because he had worked with Brian before. And just one year, we just happened to get sat next to each other at Heroes Con, and sort of just were kicking the shit and just, got along with each other so well. Like I said, I was already a huge fan of Doug's, obviously. Like I had that fan out moment where I was like, dude, Gun Candy, amazing. Ice, like everything he had done, like I had really like enjoyed already. So I knew Doug was a good writer, and I'd heard stories of Doug in the studio with Brian, because I think Doug, and correct if I'm wrong here, but you were essentially one of the only writers in the whole Gaijin like era, right? So like you were one of the only guys in the room, right? So I'd heard lots of stories about Brian from that Doug had this amazing pedigree of like writing because, he had sort of come up writing in the midst of a bunch of other like visual storyteller guys. So he was able to communicate well. And then knowing that and meeting Doug, obviously like us clicking really well. I kind of guess I knew I would be friends with Doug because I was friends with Brian. And that's like a weird thing when you're friends with Brian, like other people that are friends with Brian, you're pretty sure you could be friends with too. So yeah, we just kind of like clicked, and like one thing led to another, and we ended up working together. But it was that really like Brian connection, and then Heroes. So for sure.
The fun thing about that is, and you guys understand, I mean, anytime you're tabling, right? Some days it's happening, and some days it's not. So there'd be times where like Hoyt and I would be sitting there talking to just each other for 3 hours straight, nobody else, like this is 5 years ago, and it's like, you're just sitting there and you're like, so, I mean, what are you into? Those kind of like, you just have those general conversations.
Pick up each other's stuff. Yeah.
And you just had that conversation, and he's like, hey, I like your stuff. And I was like, well, dude, I think your stuff's great. And that's where, I mean, honestly, that's where it all happened. It's just as a sit next to each other and then like, hey, we should work together.
Yeah. But you guys actually did it, because how many times at cons do people go, oh, we should work together, and they're just jerking each other off and nothing ever happens? But you guys actually accomplished the goal, right? Like you have a whole book. That's amazing.
We did. Yeah, we really did. We liked each other enough. He was able to put up with my shit enough. Right to this point,
Now, Doug, you're like a prolific crime writer too, man. Like a lot of your stuff is more crime leading. Are you secretly like a James Bond villain? Like you're this massive like criminal mastermind? How does that work?
Dude, I appreciate the word prolific because I don't see it that way. It's like I feel
stop
like
it.
Like one miniseries a year kind of thing. But no, I mean, it ends up. I don't know. I'm obsessed with all of that stuff. So like, when you start talking about plastic, and it was like, I mean, dude, I love serial killers, and I love the idea of like, any normal, you're just looking at a normal human being. And it's like the idea behind that was like, what if you just messed with the wrong guy? Like, what if he doesn't look like he's a bad person, but you just mess with the wrong guy, and what happens there, and the crime stuff. I mean, it's a lot of it, Brian's into crime. So is Kevin Gardner, the president of 12 Gauge. So a lot of that just, kind of goes hand in hand when they're like, hey, what do you want to do? And those two will always go crime noir. That's always the first words out of their mouth. But I don't know. I had a psychiatrist come up to me that had actually read Plastic, and she was convinced. She's like, the only way you could have written this book is if you have done it. And I was like, no, I just, I spend a lot of my time daydreaming. So,
about killing strangers. It's really weird, but whatever. Now, do you draw on any of the kind of the legends of crime writing for your own work, like an Elmore Leonard per se, or maybe like a James Ellroy, someone along those lines? Do you kind of borrow elements from their work for your own?
I mean, I've read all of that stuff, and it's, I don't intentionally do it. Every now and then you bump into, we're like, oh yeah, I just did something that I read in an Elmore Leonard novel. Yeah. And so, there's obviously, those are inspirations, but I don't necessarily like seek it out, Mm-hmm. I consume so much stuff, especially when I was young. That's all I did. And it all bleeds in somehow.
Now, okay, that's cool. Now, do you have like a certain genre? I guess not genre is the word I'm looking for, but maybe like a favorite crime film director that you can kind of lean on for things visually, or do you, like I said, does it just kind of come from where it comes from?
Yeah, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I always try to approach things with like, I want to take something that's been done, say like James Bond, but I want to do it so that it almost feels unique. So it's like putting this layer of uniqueness on top of another property. So I will watch that stuff. The problem becomes is if I see it, I have a tendency to avoid it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, I kind of go the opposite direction. It's like, oh, so, No Country for Old Men, they kind of did this guy that's walking around with, whatever that thing was, that air tank.
Cattle punch.
The cattle punch, and you're like, oh, I can't use that. That's my first instinct. Yeah. So I try to stay away from that stuff. Still try to get that same feeling.
Kevin has a tendency to try to reverse engineer things.
I do.
Like he's very much like the Chinese government in that way. Like, oh, well, I saw this thing, but how can we do it better? Like, let's take it apart and put it back together and make it different, which I think is kind of a challenge in its own right too. You take the elements of something that seems familiar and then kind of turn it on its ear. Yeah,
I think that's fine. I mean, to me, I think like, I'm of that same mentality in that, like, I think a lot of the ideas that I've ever had for any stories that I've wanted to do come from me seeing something and going either, man, that was good, but they didn't do it right. Or, or the feeling of like, man, that was just awful. Like that didn't work at all. And then thinking of a way that to make like a story situation work. And then that's where like, I'll get a story idea from like, okay, to make that work, to make that ending work that didn't work in that movie that I saw, they would have to change all of these elements to line up that ending properly, and then sort of reverse engineer and then just start riffing with somebody on something until it becomes something else,
Yeah, no,
that's exactly how I think. So it's like the concept is good. I like this concept, like this idea of this thing is good. But then when I saw the execution, I was like, I don't know why they went those were the story choices with that execution. Like it doesn't make any sense to my brain. My storytelling brain doesn't. So how do we do that but different and better? Like that's always the question I asked Bobby. I'm like, no, like this but different and better. Like
always different but better. Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%, dude. I think that is like the way I think too. I think.
How did you approach though, like Metal Shark Bro? Like, because there isn't, a story out there with a shark dude playing a guitar and you go, oh, that's not done right. Let me redo it. Like,
that was more just kind of happenstance. And like, that was more of like a coincidental thing. I heard a news story that kind of triggered something in my brain. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of one of those moments where it's like, oh, that would be super cool. So then I just called Kevin and we hashed it out over, a 10-hour phone call. And then we had the whole first arc outlined, which was kind of fun to do. But so that was just something that was sparked by like a news story that I heard, so it was just, you get inspiration from different places. But then with the story elements for Metal Shark Bro, it was like, we don't know if we'll be able to do this because we have to crowdfund it. So why don't we just shove everything that we love kind of into this work, because this might be our shot. Like this might be our only shot to do this. So let's just fucking go out swinging. So that's kind of what we did,
Yeah, it was like, what are the things that we want to do with this that make it bigger and like make everything bigger than the last thing you saw? So like, let's go with this. Let's go with kaiju. Let's have like giant robot monster fights. Whatever we can squeeze in there that's going to make it bigger and more bombastic than the last scene.
And if it makes sense, because part of it too was, I think we had the idea, and I think we still have that as storytellers, if they buy the basic premise of a guy falls off a boat and gets eaten by a shark, and then that shark gets turned into a herald of Satan, then they're going to go along with anything you do.
Yeah, they signed up, right?
Yeah, and that gives you a real freedom as a storyteller, where you can just go, fuck it, man, let's just go big or go home, basically. I hate to use such a stupid slogan that you see on t-shirts and stuff, but I mean, let's do it. Like, let's try to make this thing as big as we can do.
Yeah.
No, like,
I agree completely. I think we did a lot of that same stuff going into Yumi, dude. It was a lot of that same, like, oh, I want, what kind of spy car are we going to have? I want a Lamborghini, okay, I want it to be, electric blue. Okay. Can it change colors? Can it do, you know what I mean? Like, just anything we wanted that we thought of, we're like, okay, cool. Yeah. Put that in, like Doug wanted to put in music, and we were like, all right, cool. Let's see how we can incorporate music into like the thing. Every aspect that we can think to put in there, we put in there. Cause you're right. I mean, I think when you're going to go to people to fund what it is that you want to do, I think you want it to be what it is that you want to do.
Exactly.
I don't want people to fund me to do my dream that I don't want to do, like I actually want to do the thing. So like, I think that's like, to me, I think you're totally right, dude. 100%.
That's awesome.
So it's neat to see you bring it back around to that, because like when I first saw the campaign, I thought of it as like Old Boy meets like Bond, or like something like that.
Sure.
Like, so it's got that cool, like weird, like element, a crime element from Old Boy, with like everything is neon in one part, and everything, like the way that they used the like the picturesqueness of Old Boy to tell the story. And a lot of times there was no one for him to talk to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, it is very like, it's relying on the visual storytelling to get all that across. And then looking at what you guys are doing, you're doing that with like the fight scenes, say, like in the big and bombastic, like Asian cinema, and that's amazing. So
yeah, that's awesome that you said that, man, because honestly that makes me feel good, because obviously I watched a lot of like Asian cinema to get and choreography and like to figure that stuff out, holding on the shot and showing the action, which is like really weird and hard to do in a comic book, to be honest with you. Like to make that look like it's moving versus like still pictures. And I had like a huge paranoia about the pacing. Like I wanted it to read really fast, because like I want her to be like this just unstoppable juggernaut that, just can't be controlled. And so I want those action scenes to read really quickly. So to be able to even try to do that, I like looked at a ton of that Hong Kong Asian cinema stuff. And because they do that baller, dude. Jackie Chan movies and all kinds. There's tons of old Asian cinema that does action so well.
That's always been my question. What happened to not Chow Yun Fat, but John Woo on that trip from Asia to Los Angeles? Like, what happened to him? Like, all of a sudden, people just forgot that dude knew how to make killer films, and then I don't know what happened. I love John Woo movies. They're terrific.
Agreed. And maybe he got a little too much money from Tom Cruise when he did that second Mission Impossible movie or something.
He almost killed that franchise.
Yeah,
like, he really almost killed that franchise. That's crazy to think about.
The scarf scene, like where he catches the scarf in the wind or whatever. Like,
do you guys have birds? Do you guys have doves in your book at all anywhere? Doug, are there doves anywhere?
Are there doves? We got raccoons though.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Now, Hoyt just mentioned the pacing of the thing. Doug, how did you approach Hoyt's idea of the thing being kind of like breakneck speed? Was it like dialogue light in some of the fight scenes? How did you go about to help that along?
Yeah, that one's always a tough one. I mean, from my writing perspective anyway, it's like I want to find like that perfect balance if you can. And like Hoyt and I both felt like not only was she like it needs to be fast and everything needs to be fast paced, but I also wanted to kind of like have her talk fast. So how do you get the reader to read faster? And carry over that kind of stuff. So I mean, I love the quiet scenes before the speed. So it's kind of like trying to figure out that perfect balance of like how many pages do you use to tell an action scene? Is 10 too many for a single issue?
Yeah.
I think in traditional publishing they would tell you yes. Like you can't have 18 pages of Captain America be nothing but action scene. But like when you're doing your own thing, you can. So it's like trying to figure out that balance. And again, what did you want to see? What did Hoyt and I want to see in the book? So that's where he and I would talk, and I'd be like, okay, well, I'm thinking, like when we get to Lover's Bridge, let's take a moment of breath to where like she's actually putting a lock on this thing, but you don't realize like she was there early to set everything up. Like she's always, 18 moves ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we had this quiet scene, and then of course she gets naked and changes, right in front of her femme fatale duel. And then we jump into this like, okay, let's move nonstop until we get to the end, and then we'll slow it down again. And so that's like what we're trying to balance, that, to be honest with you, I think a lot of it, at least for me, is just gut. Like, what does my gut tell me feels right? What do I want to read is what it comes down to.
Right.
Yeah. Because Kevin and I always have the conversation about writing dialogue in fight scenes. And I feel like there's an expectation from readers and even editors that I've worked with in the past to be like, you have to say something here. It's a fight scene. Like there has to be words, but it's like, why do we have to talk? Like we're fighting, but why does there need to be dialogue here? Is it because you need to prove your chops as a writer, or is it because the reader expects something, or is it a little bit of both? Or
because nobody really talks when they're fighting. That's what we said.
Yeah.
To that. Or like nobody. I've never been in a fight and been talking to the guy at the same time. You're like basically like, oh, like you got to fight, but like nobody is in a fight trying to talk. So like, why do we have to do that? And we didn't get a very good answer back. So maybe you guys have a good answer.
Yeah, Doug, tell us, why do we have to talk during fights?
I think there's two reasons for that, to be honest with you. Number one, I think we've trained readers in comics to expect dialogue on every page and every panel.
Okay,
that's something. Yeah, that's a trained, like traditional. That's what you do. The other one I'll throw at you is, I think at some point there were so many fight scenes that had no subtext to them that the fight scene was boring. No matter how well it was drawn, there was no emotional stakes to it. And so I think the dialogue part came to of like, how can I add emotional stakes to this fight scene? And I'm with you. Like, why can't you have like, it's the final time Wolverine and Sabretooth face off. Let's have a 10-page fight scene where they say nothing.
Yeah.
You go gunslinger on it, right? Like they walk in and they're like, this is the final time. And then you have this amazing fight scene, but it has to be good.
Yeah.
And it can't be just throwing punches. So I think that's where
thing there too. It's like it's both. It's like the writer and then also the artist too, because if you're not someone who's capable of carrying the scene visually, then I think you need that, extra boost from the dialogue to help you carry what's happening if you don't understand or know how to like push somebody through that. I think from an artist's perspective, that puts a lot of pressure on me, right? No dialogue means everybody's definitely looking at the art. Dialogue means people are reading the dialogue and might look at the art, like they'll read what's happening on the dialogue and they'll glance over the art. But if there's no dialogue there, then they're forced to look at the pictures. And so that puts a lot of pressure. And I think just puts it on the artist to be able to tell that story visually, whatever that fight scene is.
Yeah, but at the same time too, though, you can't sell a book that doesn't have great art. Right. Like if your art stinks, so it's kind of like a weird, it's a weird balance. Yeah. And it seems like you guys definitely have found that balance.
Oh, thank you, dude. That is incredibly kind. Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to getting my soft cover because I'm a cheapskate and I don't need a hardcover to really enjoy things.
Oh man, no. You're wrong.
Man,
you need the fucking hardcover. You need the metal one. Bob.
I don't need that stuff.
You do.
My wife gets mad at me when I buy books. Like she's like, we have enough books, and I'm like, I know, but still, I need this one. They're friends, and it looks fucking killer. It looks fucking killer.
It
looks. Hoyt, you did a bad bang up job on this thing. It
Thank you,
looks
buddy.
tremendous.
bro.
That's Kevin, man. The colors on that's Kevin Leonard's, man. He killed it on that. Kevin, shout out to Kevin Leonard's, man. He is an amazing artist in his own right, and he came with the color game on that, and he just killed it. Like, I mean, we were gonna originally work together, you know, and he just like showed up with all these awesome colors. Like, well, I don't know what together means. I'm just gonna like, be like, this is good, and we're turning this shit in, man. So,
you're a good colorist in your own right, Hoyt. Did you have any input on the colors? Or you just kind of let Doug? Did you have any input, or did you just kind of let the colorist do the colorist thing?
Yeah, just a conversation, man. Honestly, I think like at the end of the day, as far as like Doug and I are concerned, really like the people we have involved, including ourselves, we trust everybody and trust each other to the point where we know the person's going to do that job. So when it came to the color stuff, we really just sat down with Kevin in the beginning and we're like, hey, this is the story we want to tell. This is what we want to go for. These are the vibes we want, you know, this is what we want to do overall with the storytelling. And then sort of Kevin just kind of went off on his own and would just come back with chunks, you know, and go, hey man, I've done this scene, you know, like, what do you think? And it was just every single time I was just like, dude, this is incredible. Like, I don't know, but none of these choices are color choices that I would make. And somehow this like works exactly the way that I would like it to. And I think that's what you get also when you have that relationship with the people you're working with, including like with Doug and our editor and everything, is that when you get something back, it's not what you expected it to be, but somehow it's like more than what you wanted it, you know? Like, I think all of us were shooting for the intentions of what everybody else wanted instead of just like doing whatever. And I think that like built up what we were doing like so much, you know? So yeah, Kevin killed it on those colors, like just amazing.
I mean, the whole book. Go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
I was going to say most of my input was the advice I give everybody that I don't follow myself. You know, I was like with Hoyt, even when he's doing the pages and stuff, and Kevin Leonard, they'd be like, you know, dude, what do you think? And I was like, the worst thing you can do is bring it back to me and me have to tell you to go farther. I'd rather you go take this away and bring it back to me with the intentions of you knowing I'm going to tell you went too far. Because I don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, go and do it to where you're like, there's no way Doug's going to let me get away with this. There's no way. Yeah. And if you can come back with that in your head, I guarantee you we have a good book.
Yeah.
And that's got to give you a lot of freedom, Hoyt.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of like, I think like we had this like one-upsmanship with each other that wasn't negative, where it was like Doug would write something and I'd read the scenes, like for example, that Lover's Bridge fight scene that he was talking about. One of the femme fatales in that, she has these like this flaming cane, this like flamethrower cane, and Doug wrote this scene where her and Yumi face off and she's fighting with this like flamethrower cane. And already I was like, damn, that's like a cool weapon. Had never thought of that before. We had kicked around a bunch of different weapon ideas. And then finally, when I got the script of the scene, he had chosen that one. And I was just like, wow, that's really cool, whatever. But then I was like, how do I make this cooler though? Like, okay, cane with a flamethrower cane would be dope. But like, it would be even tighter if like, it was like, she could split it into 2 flamethrower canes. And now she's got like the dual wielding flamethrower canes thing. And I was just doing that and I laid it out that way. And I sent it to Doug, literally thinking exactly what Doug was saying to our editor as well. And like thinking they're not going to let me roll with that. I mean, they're going to go, that's kind of dumb, Hoyt. Like, you shouldn't do that. And so, but like everybody loved it. And it was that just back and forth, one thing and another. And then Doug altered the dialogue. And it was just a back and forth of trying to make what the person did before you better than what it was given to you as.
Well, I mean, what's cooler than one flaming cane?
Yeah, right.
2 of them, obviously. Like, that's clearly the answer.
We're doubling up, man.
Yeah, there you go. It's twice as cool.
That's right. That's how I saw it. You know?
So what's with the raccoon? Tell me about the raccoon.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, the raccoons. Yeah. So we have... So the story has these sections where you sort of go into Yumi's perspective of her memories of what happened on her dates with our secret agent, Richard Head. And so one of the scenes involves her on her first date with Richard, where they go to Izakaya Toyo in Osaka, Japan, and they sort of get some food, but some raccoons jump in and try to steal it. And it's got a whole subtext of like, you know, sort of, I don't want to spoil anything or whatever, but it has a whole subtext of like what's happening with her. And they're kind of trying to save her from getting with him kind of thing, you know? And it's just this cutesy sort of thing that we put together. You know, and there's also a raccoon eating out of the trash. So there's that too.
I mean, people love raccoons, right? Like,
yeah.
you might as well tap into that shit.
Nah, we thought they were cool too. And I think at the end of the day, Doug worked a lot of that symbolism into our character as well. Her being like Japanese American, her sort of tech, she named Tanuki, which is like a Japanese bear raccoon thing. So we worked that into the thing. Like there's a lot of, Doug did a really tight job, man. I would be curious to see if everybody picks up on all like the sweet little ins and outs that Doug put in there for all the stuff. Yeah, it's fun, man. I don't know. I'm just daydreaming about how fun that was and want to do it so bad again for another project. So
now, Doug, this thing is finished. Yes. So once the Kickstarter ends in 14 days, this book will be to the printer and out the door. Yes.
Yes, it's all ready to go.
Awesome.
Yep, we've completely finished it. Yep.
That's really great.
But the fun doesn't stop there. You guys have stretch goals in mind. That's what I read on the thing, right? So can you give us any kind of special intel, like secret agent stuff on the specs on the stretch goals?
What do we got? 15. If we hit 15, which one's that? That we include the
daily comic, yeah. So if we hit 15, we can afford to put our monthly comic, which we're running like a daily comic every day. We're posting a panel from a short story that Doug and I did, that happens before all the events in the book. It's just like a fun little thing that we wanted to do.
That's fun. For
the campaign, yeah. So if we can raise that 15, we can include that story in the book as well, which would be awesome. That'd be even more story pages for everybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
I dig it, man. And this thing is already funded. This will come out next week. So you've probably got about a week or 10 days left to back this book. It's Yumi, Spy Fatale, Battle Royale thing. It's a great title. It's a great book, dude. I mean, it's beautiful.
It looks great.
Thank you, man.
It really does. Like this thing is just killer looking. I'm so happy for both of you. Hoyt, I've known you a really long time. I'm really proud of you for doing that.
Thank you, dude.
I mean, it's great work, dude. It looks amazing.
Yeah. For people who don't know, Bob wrote the very first comic book that I worked on.
Yeah,
the very first issue that I worked on.
And look how far you've come. Like, you're stopped working with a hack like me, and you're working with guys like Doug Wagner. Isn't that awesome, right?
Yeah, I haven't broke out yet, man. Look at me. I'm stuck. Your metal shark, bro, taking off to the sky, and I'm over here just doing my thing.
Hey, Doug's got those hot image books, baby, right? He'll tell you he's got all those hot image books, right?
Nah, no complaints here, man. Honestly, like I love y'all. I'm so glad that we can be friends after all this time. Like, it's just nice. I think people, the relationships you build in comics, like they come and go. Like the seasons, people stop doing comics, do comics, don't do comics, like whatever. So it's just nice to have friends that have been around doing it as long as I have, if not longer. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time, dude. Like, we have fun. That's the whole point. We're trying to tell these stories, these great stories that need to be told. And I'm really happy that this one is going to be told and people are going to get to see it. So that's really awesome. Doug, is there plans for like a sequel? You guys working on a sequel for this thing, or is that hush?
Well, that's a good one. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, the tough part was, we just got over the stress of being funded. So, we were like, let's get funded and then we'll have that conversation. So until the Kickstarter is over, I don't think Hoyt and I are even going to think about that conversation.
Yeah.
It's like, let's hold off. Let's see what happens.
But are the wheels in your head at all turning about the further adventures of Yumi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already had multiple conversations about what we could do next.
That's awesome.
That conversation came up in a meeting, and they were like, what would you do after this? We don't think this can be a franchise kind of thing. And we're like, Hoyt and I just started spitting out different ideas, and we're like, here's 4.
Yeah, here's one about this. We could do this. We could change it to this.
And then you pointed at and here's 2 right here. Suck it. We got all this stuff figured out, baby. That's awesome. Well, this thing is.
And I'm glad you guys are funded, and I'm glad that part of the stress is over. So that's great. You guys are going to get to the stretch goals. I believe you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a beautiful book. Congratulations to both you guys. We're so excited for both of you. And like, Doug, where can we find you on social media?
I do Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Usually if you punch in Doug Wagner, you'll see my ugly mug on one of those pages. So it's pretty, I don't look like very many people. Or I should say very many people don't look like me. So however you want to interpret that.
That's cool. And then Hoyt, where can we find you, my man?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Hoyt Silva, and I'm on Instagram at the Hoyt, TheHoyt. So
Hoyt, are you still doing the Twitch streams and all that?
I am
stuff?
still doing it. Well, so I've taken a little break from that just because I was doing a lot of work and working on this stuff and getting it all together and stuff. But I will be resuming streaming on Twitch again here in the future, not too far in the future. So that's the Hoyt on Twitch as well. So
there you go.
There you go.
So Doug and Hoyt, thank you so much, man. This book it's hot. It looks great. It looks fucking cool as shit, dude. Like I'm really excited for both of you guys. Go to Kickstarter, Yumi Spy Fatal Baddie Royale. Check that out right now on Kickstarter. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Dude, my pleasure, man. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And good luck. Fuck, you don't even need luck. You're already funded.
Thank you guys.